Wednesday's Darth Vader comic was a fantastic ending to the best series in the current canon. But other than the ending itself, issue number 25 has given fans an endless number of topics to discuss and speculate about, stemming from the bizarre world and visions granted to Vader after he entered the portal crafted by he and Lord Mammon. One of the questions that has dominated the discussion between Star Wars fans in the aftermath of the issue is what exactly we should make of the image that could potentially sweep away important aspects from Legends. Of course, I'm talking about the image depicted to Vader on his path that shows that it was Sidious who was behind the creation of Anakin, thereby rebutting the role of Plagueis that was previously established from Legends. In this video expose, I'll break down this topic, explaining the scenes from the comic and describing whether we can definitively state that Plagueis has been superseded by Sidious within the current canon. First, let's look at what happened in the Vader comic issue number 25. After opening the portal within his Mustafar fortress, that which he was told would be able to pierce the veil of time itself, Vader entered a world that was similar to the one seen in his own visions during times of meditation. With a reunion with Padme as his goal, Vader headed for the fortress in this new world. But on his way, Vader would come to see all the major events that had taken place in his life, and even some that would take place in the future. The very first image on his path was one of his mother, a younger version of herself pregnant with Anakin. While initially it's just Shmi, she's quickly joined by Sidious, who from behind her appears to be focused upon her unborn child, targeting Anakin directly even before he was born. Coupled with the wording of "there was no father" that surrounded Shmi before Sidious's arrival, this image has led many, and rightly so in my opinion, to speculate that it was Sidious who therefore created Anakin, had somehow used the Force to bring the Chosen One into being. This, of course, would be a massive change from the events surrounding Anakin's creation from Legends. I've discussed it fully in a video entitled Everything Darth Plagueis Did to Create Anakin Skywalker, but we'll very briefly recap the events of the Legends novel Darth Plagueis here as well. It should be noted that Plagueis did not directly manipulate the Force or midichlorians to give birth to Anakin Skywalker. Plagueis' role in Legends wasn't as direct as it appears Sidious's may now be within canon. Basically drunk on his newfound abilities to manipulate midichlorians with greater and greater skill, and having shifted the balance of the Force to the dark side, Plagueis attempted the unthinkable. He would try to bring into reality a forceful being of his own design. He wasn't merely now attempting to cheat death, but create life itself. Plagueis stretched out across the galaxy to impose his will upon the Force and create a being of his own image. But Plagueis failed. In fact, he felt the Force grow silent and recoil from him. As the novel continues, it becomes clear that this act did not directly create Anakin. Rather, it was the Force that acted and created a powerful being in response. Plagueis attempted to play God with the Force, and the Force responded to restore balance. I'll be honest, taking the image within the Vader comic at face value, I far prefer the Legends version to any type of direct involvement by Sidious or any other Sith. But should we accept the image at face value? Is it true that now within canon, Plagueis' role has been removed to where it's now Sidious as the mastermind behind Anakin's creation? Is Sidious really the father? I believe it comes down to how exactly we view the world entered by Vader. Fortunately, StarWars.com released an interview with the writer of the Vader series, Charles Soule, on the same day issue 25 was released. This interview is a fascinating one, and I highly recommend that everyone check this one out. Link will be in the description. As many of my favorite writers do, Soule doesn't answer everything. In fact, at times, he asks the interviewer and audience what they think different things mean. Filoni does the same thing a lot of times, and I love that. Especially in Star Wars, it's so hard to interpret every meaning in detail, so a lot of times, topics lend themselves to speculation and different interpretations. But at the same time, I'm not going to dismiss Soule's interpretation entirely as the writer of the series and the mastermind behind how the visuals turned out the way they did. In Soule's interpretation, although it can certainly be speculated either way, the world entered by Vader isn't akin to the path taken by Ezra in the World Between Worlds. For Soule, the place where Vader goes is not a realm where space and time can be altered. It doesn't really show reality as it is, but an illusion that is really more a message from the dark side than a literal representation of what has occurred in actual space and time. It gets confusing because Vader sees all of these images of events we know took place, and hears words we know were spoken, both past and present. We recognize all of them. And thus, the image of Shmi, with Sidious seemingly manipulating her child, seems like it should be placed within these true events that have taken place. That the depiction of Shmi and Sidious did actually happen too. But I think the Soul interview sheds some much needed light on this, especially as it relates to Padme and the illusion Vader is going through. Discussing the reality and illusory aspects of the world Vader enters, Soul states, "The scene with Padme is supposed to illustrate an illusion. I don't think that's Padme, right? But in my mind, that's not Padme. That's the dark side trying to convince Vader, look man, you've got to get on with the real work. That's part of your past, and your path goes to new places." In this way then, the fact that these are illusions, and also messages from the dark side itself, is important in how we interpret the images. For Soul, Padme isn't really there, and outside of the actual events that are clearly represented differently in the Rings of Fire, I believe we can say the same thing about the Jedi and Shmi in the illusion. Vader doesn't really meet Padme. He wasn't really slaughtering the Jedi High Council and Order members. He doesn't actually kill Sidious. And he doesn't really see the image of Sidious playing a role in Anakin's conception. Just like Padme represented the dark side trying to get Vader to move on, the image with his mother is a representation that Vader's path with the dark side began at birth. He was never really the chosen one as the Jedi understood it. In a very Lord Mammon type of way, the dark side is telling Vader that he has to continue on his path even now, to get on with the real work that started with his conception, when the dark side was with him even then. Of course, Soul is right that either way, the way that this is accepted generally now will probably be what is decided on in the future. It could very well be the basis for another writer to create a new story that does see Sidious directly involved in Anakin's birth. I think that would be a shame, given the loss of Plagueis and the active Force connection from Legends. Personally, I'm not going to take the image of Shmi and Sidious from issue 25 too literally at this point, and declare Sidious created Anakin, that he is the father. It just seems to give Sidious too much control, too much knowledge and foresight for a character who's already exceptional in those areas. And Star Wars does seem to be at its best when there are some things left to mystery and the uncontrollable, even with some random aspects involved. Things like the Force Priestesses and the Mortis Gods completely alter the perception of the Jedi. The Bendu changes things for Thrawn. And even Lord Mammon has recently changed the perceptions of the Rule of Two Sith Order, and just how in control Sidious and Vader were of the dark side. In many ways, some of these things can't and don't really need to be explained, but they still allow for some of the best storytelling in Star Wars. The Legends explanation was perfect in my opinion. It explained just enough to fill the holes that existed in the story, but also left just enough open to mystery and personal speculation. We never learned why the Force created Anakin, whether Anakin fulfilled exactly what the Force wanted, or anything like that. And we didn't really need to know. If Sidious did indeed directly create Anakin, it creates so many more questions that really must be answered in some way. How did Sidious learn to create life? Did he learn to manipulate midichlorians? Could the Force strike back at him for achieving such an ability? Did he use the power more than once for multiple chosen ones? Why Shmi? Why Tatooine? I feel like we start to get a bit bogged down by that point. But right now, I do think it's a 50-50 thing, left vague enough where it could go in either direction, with Sidious directly influencing the events or not. And really, it isn't the worst place to be in either, as it does get everyone to discuss the possibilities, with both options available to writers in the future. But for me, I'm nevertheless on Team Plagueis for this one. So there we have it, what to make of Anakin's creation in the current canon after Vader issue number 25. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions. Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. Or perhaps follow us on Twitter, at SW Reading Club, for updates regarding the channel. Or support the channel through Patreon, for access to exclusive rewards and discussions. If not for me... For if it isn't broke, don't fix it. I mean it.